Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Castlevania Season 3, Episodes 5 to whatever. And the reason I said that, and you obviously already know based on the title of the video how many episodes I watched today. As of recording this, I don't. We're going to do the thing where it's just like I'm just going to watch until I feel like I'm good to stop. Now, I believe there's 10 episodes this season. I think last time I like wrongly said there were like 7 or something. But no, there because there were like 4 episodes the first season. Second season had double that 8, and now this season has just 2 more than the last one. I believe that's how it goes. Um, but yeah, like there's 10 episodes. I have them all downloaded already. Um, just because even though they're on Netflix, it's like with how my internet has been, it's just like we just want to keep it safe. It's easier this way, I guess. Um, but yeah, so we had a lot of stuff we left off on last time. There's quite a few different story lines going on at the moment. So let me see if I can try to remember them all. So first off, we have this town where there's kind of 2 separate storylines going on that we know are going to converge into one. Um, we have Saint Germain, Bill Nye's character, or Germain, or however you want to pronounce it. He's he's working with the monks at the priory, not really like allied with them, but he's working with them at the moment to gain their knowledge. He offers them something that'll help them. They let him into the priory to look at their research and their books and stuff. Um, and through him, we find out that the monks are wearing the alchemical symbol for hell. Well, sulfur specifically, but it denotes hell. Uh, and that's, yeah, we're starting to get a more clear picture on why these monks are creepy as fuck, on why they seem to worship Dracula and especially his wife and everything. And we even get kind of a backstory, like maybe where it started, but it might have occurred before then. It's unclear. But there's these demons that attacked the town. One of them was launched into the priory, apparently made some kind of pact with the monks. Yeah, it's unclear exactly what happened, but we get the gist of it. And that appears at least to be where it all started. And they said that their visitor, which we know is the demon, was the one who gave them the symbol. So, yeah. Meanwhile, Trevor and Sypha are in the same town, and they meet with the the judge who runs the town, the leader of the town, and all. And he knows that things are going really weird with the priory monks and wants them to be looked into. And so he has Trevor and Sypha work for him in order to find out what they can. And so they agree. Trevor more begrudgingly, but that's just Trevor. And they head to the priory where they get into a little bit of an argument with some of the monks, but nothing actually happens. No fighting actually begins. Um, but it's definitely like they got some information from it, just from being in their presence and seeing them, all of that jazz. Meanwhile, Alucard is continuing to bring in his new learned youngsters. I'm going to keep calling them that, by the way. I cannot remember their names. I think it's Taka and maybe Yumi. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. But he brings them in, and he continues his offer to train them and everything. And we know that that's going to happen at some point. And I don't know where this storyline's headed. Like I feel like it's headed one of 2 ways. Either they're going to end up being attacked, and Taka and Yumi, I'm going to call them that for now until I remember their actual names, if unless that is their actual names, but you know. Either they're going to have to work with Alucard to take out on their invaders or whoever, or they're going to find out about some kind of like vampire threat looming over the horizon, maybe the sisters, and start to work to take that on. Um, I don't really see any other options besides that at the moment. So I don't know. I just don't know where that's going to go. Um, yeah. Otherwise, speaking of the sisters, at the castle, we kind of have a couple storylines going on there. We didn't see Carmilla last time, but she's still scheming as she does. But we saw the youngest sister. I can't remember their names, by the way. Um, but she started to talk with Hector, and they started to kind of connect a little bit. Hector started trusting her a little more, and we see that she is like completely diplomatic. She can defend herself and she can fight, but she chooses to be more, just diplomatic, more focused on words and discussion and everything. Even going up to the point of offering Hector some amenities. Um, she's being very understanding, but I don't trust the shit out of her. I don't know. With the fact that she admits that like talking to people is her thing, I have this feeling that she is manipulating the fuck out of him. And that this is all just part of the plan. And it makes perfect sense, honestly. Especially with the fact that they're like making her seem like, the innocent, nice one compared to her sisters. Um, but it's like usually those are the characters you kind of have to watch out for. um, but we see the other two sisters again. I can't remember their names. The big buff warrior one, and then the more scholarly one. I can't remember their names for the life of me, and I really wish I could. But we see they're actually in a relationship, which is really awesome. Um, like there are some people who will say that portraying LGBTQ people as bad guys is not the kind of representation we need, but I disagree. And I've talked about this before. I think that for LGBTQ plus representation, we need to have representation on all sides for it to be one, accurate, and two, to be fair. Like only having LGBTQ people portrayed as good guys who are incorruptible or shit in media, that would be so far removed from reality and so insincere. Like, I understand wanting and desiring to be portrayed as good, of course, but not all LGBTQ plus people are. Not everyone from any group is all good, no matter what it is. That's not how things work. No single group is comprised 100% of people who are all good or all bad. It's just how it is. Now, there are obviously groups out there who, just based on their entire ideology, are inherently bad. Yes, big example being the Nazis. If you're a Nazi, you're bad. But those are usually the extreme cases and more like secluded groups in the mainstream. Plus, there have actually been good people working within the enemy ranks in order to save and protect people and even just infiltrate as spies and shit. So even technically within like that kind of idea, there are good people within those ranks, even if they are just spies. But it's like You can't just assume that either. It's a really complicated issue. Let's put it that way. But you can't just like it's a logical fallacy to automatically rank everyone within a group as wholly good or wholly bad. It's basically guilt by association, and it's not right, and we shouldn't do that for LGBTQ people either. It's like, yeah, these two are bad guys, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that their love isn't real. That doesn't mean that they're not LGBTQ plus. We want representation. We want to have equal representation. We shouldn't want like this perfect only positive representation, because again, it's not accurate and it's not fair. And it just paints us as wanting basically special treatment, wanting to be seen as perfect, and that's not okay. So yeah, I'm actually really fine and okay with bad guys being portrayed as LGBTQ plus, as long as there are also good guys portrayed that way. We do want to see both, and not every series is obviously going to have both, but yeah. Um, Although I mean, I've heard some fans like ship Alucard, Trevor, and Sypha as like this bisexual polyamorous trio, and it's like, okay, that's I guess a fair ship. I never really shipped Alucard and Trevor though, like a lot of people seem to have. I just never saw it personally. I like the entire, I guess you could say, um, bickering rivals trope being shipped together never appealed to me. I just never understood it as a ship idea. Um, but yeah, that's just maybe me. either way, either way. Um, Outside of that, because I talked about that way too long. Outside of that, let's see. Yeah, the sisters. I mentioned Alucard. I mentioned the stuff in the town, and I think that's it. I think that's all we really touched on last time. I don't think there's any other big storylines at the moment. I don't know. I guess maybe we'll see. Um, but yeah, either way, I am ready to get this started. Again, we are just going to do. I mean, you guys again already know how many episodes we're doing. I don't. I'm just gonna react until I feel like it's right to stop, until I feel I'm ready to stop. And we'll go from there, I guess. Um, Hopefully we have some good episodes today, and I'm hoping to enjoy the content we get. Because this series has been really good. Like, it's not my favorite show by any means. Not my favorite Netflix series or anything. But I do really enjoy it. It's definitely different from a lot of the stuff I watch, but I do very much enjoy it, and I think it's a really good series that I don't feel gets as much attention as it deserves. But then again, you could say that about almost any Netflix animated series. You could say that about Glitch Checks. You could say that about the unfortunately dead show as well. Um, oh crap, what is it called? 12 Forever, which is unfortunately dead because the creator is a complete creep. Um, the show was really good though, mind you. Like the show was really good. And it really sucks because I really enjoyed it. So it's like it sucks we're not getting more Butt Witch. But again, I get sidetracked really easily. We're just gonna get this started. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episodes. That being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, we are back and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So before anything, I want to make a correction. I actually looked up a couple things in between recording the reaction and this, just to kind of clarify a couple things. The main thing I wanted clarified is Sumi and Taka. I wanted to see if there was anything said regarding the entire incest angle or whatnot, and I found out that they're not actually siblings. And apparently, it's never even said in the series that they're siblings, and it's just kind of assumed because they kind of look alike. And the art style, I guess, makes them look very similar or something. But Samuel Dietz apparently confirmed that they are not siblings. They're not related. So I guess they were just two slaves under Cho who just happened to look kind of similar. um, but anyways, so also just a note, as I said in the pre-thoughts, I didn't know how many we were going to go, but I did not expect to do the entire rest of the season. This was completely unplanned, and honestly, I just got too into it. I got too into it to the point where I just could not find a point where I rightfully could say that, okay, we'll stop here and continue sometime, like maybe next week or something. Because that tends to be how it goes. We do like a reaction once a week, or maybe every other week, or whatever. Depends on the show, depends on circumstances, all that. Um, but yeah, it's just I couldn't find there wasn't really a point at the end of any of these episodes where I truly felt like, okay, we can end it here. I felt like, no, I have to see more. I have to see where this goes and stuff. Pretty much every time. I think the only exception was the end of episode 5. But I knew from the start that I was going to be watching multiple episodes here, so I wasn't going to end it after only one episode. So at that point, it's like, with that being the only spot I feel like I could have stopped, it didn't work out. Um, so let's talk about all of the different plot points here. And we're going to start with Lindenfeld, everything that surrounded that. So, to put a long story short, the um, the looking into the priory and the monks, everything continued. Trevor and Sypha ended up kind of forcing um, Saint Germain to work with them, and they found out that the night creature from before, from I guess years ago or something, some unknown time ago, is in the basement, and they're using him for a ritual. We don't know exactly what at first, but we eventually find out they're trying to open the portal to hell to bring back Dracula and presumably Lisa as well. Um, but yeah, everything's kind of going to shit. Um, they end up going through with their plan on the same night that our heroes and the judge are going to attack. And during the entire big ensuing fight, they succeed in opening the portal. But as the big fight with our main characters in the basement goes down between them and all these demons and shit, thanks to Saint Germain, they do manage to close the portal because of his magic, utilizing it by basically channeling it through the head demon. But as it's closing, he does manage to go through the portal after opening it specifically to the world where the person he had been looking for, again, presumably lover or something, had been. And the portal's closed and he's there, and it almost seems unsatisfying as a way to end off his story, because we don't find out who the person actually is. We can assume it's a lover or a wife or husband or whatever. We don't know. We only see a shadowed form, and it's too vague to actually say with any certainty. And we don't even know the relationship. It could be his child or something, for all we know. But point is, we have no way of telling. And if this is truly the end of the story, if we don't get anything more with him, then we have no context for just how that all went. And yeah, you could say like, oh, it's a good mystery kind of left up to the imagination, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but it just feels like you're missing information. It feels like you're missing context, and it doesn't feel right. It just feels off. It makes the entire his entire storyline feel off, to me at least. Um, so following that, uh, after the demons are all defeated, the portal is closed. Um, Sala had been led to that apple tree by the judge. Um, Sypha and Trevor go to the apple tree and find a spike pit with a bunch of bones in it, as well as Sala's corpse, because Sala had fallen down it and died. They go back to the judge's house because he told them to burn it, and that's where they find out that he had apparently been sending many people to his death to that pit, to their death to the at that pit, including a kid we saw briefly who somehow decomposed into bones in a very, very short amount of time. Like that part kind of confused me. Um, but he was collecting bits of their clothing and shit as trophies. It seemed like mostly shoes, but I think there was a couple other pieces of clothing there. As kind of trophies, and this apparently was even hinted at before as being just something really fucked up he was doing. I guess the reason he wanted his house burned down was to get rid of the evidence of that and to kind of just purge that from the world, because maybe he actually did um in the end like realize how fucked up that was if he didn't already know it. um so yeah, basically everything went to hell, and as Trevor puts at the end there, we've for months now we've been living your life, adventures and victories, but now you're living mine. And he doesn't emphasize on that, but we know what it means: death, destruction, failure, pain and misery. Everything went wrong, and that's how Trevor's life has been up until more recently, but it's back there again now. So they're really at a low point emotionally because of that. Meanwhile, I'm going to talk about this next story point here because I kind of want to just get it out of the way. Alucard and the I guess partners, I guess you could call them, Taka and Sumi, because we I now know they're not siblings. This was, in my opinion, the best and worst story of the season. And when I say worst, I don't mean like it was bad or like it was written bad or even the ending of it was poorly done or anything. No, it was excellently done. It was extremely well handled and extremely well executed. When I say it's the worst, I mean I hate it on a personal level because it just bothers me and makes me super fucking sad. Like I was so fucking close. I'm really surprised. Knowing me, you guys have seen me cry in so many reactions. I am really surprised I didn't break down there. I was so freaking close. But I almost feel like maybe it's just not the kind of thing like that would make me cry per se. It makes me extremely sad and depressed, but that's it. It kind of brings just my entire mood and just mindset to a very heavy level of depression, kind of skipping past the need for tears almost. Um, because we see throughout the season, Alucard meets and befriends these two, and as it goes along, you can see that they're growing very close, that they're connecting, and just honestly, as I was watching it, it's like you saw them like laughing about and Sumi pretending like Alucard was her slave and shit. Um, like telling me, oh, like carry me back to the castle and make us lunch and shit. And it's like it was so heartwarming to see Alucard laughing so genuinely and to see him so genuinely happy. And it's just you could even see bits of fuel there to even believe in the idea of shipping. And people have always said that they see Alucard as bi. It's always been a big thing with the fandom, um, shipping him with both Trevor and Sypha. And as I said in the pre-thought, or was it the pre-thoughts or was it during the reaction? Either way, shipping him as like a part of a like this polyamorous uh, set of partners. Um, it'd feel weird to call them a group, but I don't know. But to ship them polyamorously, all three of them, um, and so it's like it's not like a surprise that the creators of the show would actually go with that necessarily. You could kind of say it feels like a little bit like fan service, a little bit of just adhering to what the fans want and all. But as I've said in the past, that's not always a bad thing. Fan service is not inherently bad or wrong to put into a series. As long as it's done well, that's all that really matters. And if it feels natural, then it's fine. And honestly, it felt natural. I felt as if they were growing close enough to make that relationship believable. And I felt like Alucard is the type of character who, like, that wouldn't really matter to, honestly. Who if he loved someone, he would love them. So it never really bothered me. It never really felt like it would be unnatural to me. Um, and they were growing so close, and it was so believable. And but the looming thing for me was them constantly asking about the mechanism that moves the castle and shit. And it's like I kept wondering. It's like, are they good or are they tricking him? And in the end, the answer is yes to both. Well, they weren't really tricking him, but they betrayed him in the end because they felt betrayed. Keep in mind that these two, they're very young. Like I'd be surprised if they were like older than 21. They are very young and they were raised as slaves to the vampire Cho in Japan. And even after escaping, it's stated that they were still lied to and abused and that they had all these troubles, that no one would help them. And so they found Alucard and felt he would help, and he wasn't doing what they felt he needed to do for them. He was ignoring their pleas about the mechanism, which it wasn't anything suspicious. They were just genuinely curious about that and asking because they wanted to use it for their mission. And they felt like he wasn't teaching them as well as they needed to be taught. They felt betrayed and hurt and like he was ignoring their plights. They were victims too. That doesn't make their betrayal of him like better, but you have to realize that they were victims. They have been probably so heavily just traumatized throughout their lives by all of this with Cho and all these other people throughout their lives who have just not been much better, that they were just any sign of that again just set them off. When they began to have sex with Alucard, when they began to have the threesome and everything, you could see how happy Alucard was. He found people to love. That he not only just genuinely cared for, but loved. And you saw how upset he was after they betrayed him. And in the end, it caused him to retreat more into his old ways, his ways of being antisocial and secluded and lonely. He retreated into those old ways. He pinned Taka and Yumi's corpses on pikes as warnings to anyone who would come by. And as probably as a warning to himself to not get too attached to people again. And how is this going to affect going forward when he eventually does, we know what's going to happen, reunites with Trevor and Sypha? Will that affect his relationship with them? Throughout the first two seasons, Sypha was always my favorite character. And she probably still is, but Alucard jumped up a lot for me because of this season. I just feel so genuinely bad for him. And I genuinely want happiness for him. Whether the fan service does go full on and there does end up being a relationship with him, Sypha, and Trevor or not, or whether he finds someone else, I just want him to find someone and be truly happy. I really do. But moving on, because there's other plot lines to talk about, and I don't want to focus on that anymore. Let's talk about the other sexual betrayal. So at the castle, mostly the Carmilla, Striga, and the other one whose name begins with M and I can't remember it right now, they were not as important to this season, honestly, besides just introducing the couple, Striga and her girlfriend, and Carmilla kind of just being the catalyst into all of that. It definitely focused mostly on the other girl whose name I can also not remember because I'm terrible with names. And her relationship to Hector. So we see throughout the season as she becomes kind of this mediator. She relays things to Hector. She talks to him. And as we find out in the end, she's manipulating him. She manipulates him into trusting her, into believing in her, into growing close with her to the point where by the end, she convinces him to bed her. They have sex. And while it's going on, she tricks him into pledging his loyalty to her while putting one of these magic rings on his finger. So that now he can't refuse, that he must comply to their demands. And she tells him afterwards that she was saving him and everything, and she even made sure to tell her sisters that he was going to be treated well. Free roam of the castle, a good place to eat and sleep, all of that jazz. And my thoughts were like, why would she be doing that at this point? She's already won. She manipulated him. She got the ring on him. He's forced to comply. The sisters are the only other ones there. She has no reason to lie about that. So the only reason I can think of that she'd be saying that is if, one, she either does truly care for him and is trying to save him, which would make this entire thing kind of seem off to me, because this entire plan wasn't something anyone else but her came up with. So why would she need to go ahead with this plan to try and save him in any way? The only other thing I can think of is that she's crazy in the way that she wants him as kind of put in the episode, as a pet. And that she doesn't actually love him, but that she wants to keep him as like this basically like, well, obviously as a sex slave, she admitted she really enjoyed the sex with him, that he's actually good at it and everything. But also to keep as like someone she can like toy with and play with and enjoy. And that part of that is fucking with him by giving him good amenities, but still keeping him a slave so that it's like it doesn't really mean that much. I feel that's the most believable idea right now. We saw a bit of the rest of the sisters though, like Striga and the other one, and her girlfriend were figuring out how to perfect Carmilla's plan, and they did. But other than that, they didn't really have as huge a presence in this season. They probably will going forward, but yeah, this season it's like with them it was mostly okay, let's introduce this cute lesbian vampire couple. They're bad guys, but they're still LGBTQ plus. They're still together and they still genuinely love each other. Um, it's just as valid of a representation. Um, I believe I talked about it in the pre-thoughts. But yeah, it just felt like they were introduced to kind of like set up for the future as well as to bring in more of that representation. And Carmilla didn't really have much of a presence this season at all. Like at the beginning, she had a couple moments that were like, okay, so this is setting up for the future, but that's like literally it. That's what I feel like outside of the one girl and Hector, it's like the rest of the sisters were just it was really just set up. Which I mean, if it pays off well, then that's fine, but still. Then there was the entire stuff with Isaac. So throughout the season, Isaac was just traveling with his pack of night creatures, going from town to town, starting to trust in some humans, but at the same time, finding a lot of betrayal and reasons to not trust them. Um, in the end, he comes to this village with only one resident, this kooky old magic user woman who not as strong as she used to be. She tells him about what happened with this one wizard who had taken all of the members of these neighboring villages and used them as slaves. And Isaac decides to go there to build up his armies, and get the mirror that the wizard has. So he goes there, he takes on the wizard's forces, these poor enslaved humans who are just innocent victims. He gets to the top of the tower, is almost taken over himself, but breaks out and kills the wizard. He finds the mirror, uses it, and yeah, just kind of ends with the village being taken, or with the wizard's town or whatever being taken over by him and his night creatures. And we don't really know where that's going yet. He has access to the mirror, so that's presumably what's going to mainly come into play with his story. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes, though. It definitely is. But we didn't really get any real resolution to it at the moment. And I think that's it. We had the Vampire Sisters, we had Hector, we had the stuff in Lindenfell. Um, with the dimensional stuff, the other dimensions and the portal to them and everything, we did see Dracula and Lisa in Hell. Just as a quick glimpse of them, Dracula reached out as if he were trying to break through the portal, but it's like nothing really came of that. Um, that might come into play in the future. We'll have to see, but yeah, that really didn't affect too much. Overall, this season felt like a lot of it was set up. It felt like the entire thing with the sisters and Hector and all was all set up. All of the stuff with Isaac was set up. The stuff with Alucard was just kind of like this almost side story of what he was doing. And while my favorite part of the season by far, it felt like it was just something Alucard was going through. It didn't feel like it's going to affect much outside of affecting Alucard's emotional state. Which will, again, probably affect how he reconnects with Sypha and Trevor, but that's about it. I don't feel like it'll have any huge relevance to the major plot going forward. The only big plot for this season was centering around Lindenfeld and everything that happened with that. But even that seems at this point like an isolated incident. Like if Dracula and Lisa had escaped, then that would be one thing. But with how it went, they didn't escape. The night creatures were all defeated. Lindenfeld is burned to the ground with everyone in it killed. There's nothing to really move forward again, except for the emotional states of Trevor and Sypha. So even though that was like the big uh, major plot of this season, it overall still felt like setup. Like it's just there to set up Trevor and Sypha having a more dour outlook on the world. This entire season felt like it's bridging up to something big. After the fall of Dracula, after the rise of Carmilla as the new main villain, um, this is a bridging season that I feel is going to lead into the real stuff to come. And that's not to say it was bad or even weaker than the other seasons, not by any means. The voice acting was still great. They got fucking Bill Nighy. Like, Bill Nighy is amazing. He's a phenomenal actor. He's great at voice acting, clearly. And it's like, yeah, it's like you get a huge name like that. It's just fantastic. The animation was the best it's been, but that's kind of to be expected. Honestly, I had no like major complaints about how the season was handled and all. And honestly, I would probably say it's the best season of the series. I mean, obviously, I just marathon through a shit ton of episodes most of the season. So it's like there's clearly something I saw in it. But at the same time, it was set up. It felt like it was just completely setting up for the future. Like the events of it really didn't matter all too much outside of the vampire sisters and everything. Um, I guess Isaac's stuff mattered a little more too, at least in terms of him building his army and getting the mirror in the end and all. But really, it was mostly the vampire sisters and Hector stuff that mattered. The stuff with Trevor and Sypha didn't matter as much in Lindenfell. Um, Alucard's stuff didn't matter as much to like in terms of main plot. Again, it was all just to set up, I guess, their emotional states for the future. So I'm guessing for season 4, that's probably when the reuniting is going to happen. The vampire sisters are going to start to enact their plan, becoming a much bigger threat. Shit's going to go down, basically. So we'll just have to see how that goes when that comes. Obviously, we will be reacting to it. Um, but tell me in the comments below what you thought of these episodes and what you thought of the season as a whole for Castlevania Season 3. Um, yeah, I apologize for the 2-hour reaction. I did not expect to be making all of these, to be reacting to all of the rest of the season. It just kind of happened. If you can't watch it all at once, that's fine. Just watch it as you can and everything. If you, for those who do watch it, if you're not, I don't really know why you're this far into the redirect, but yeah, it's just watch it as you can and everything. All in all, I really enjoyed this season. I thought it was fantastically done. But God, did that Alucard plot line make me sad in the end. And I really liked Sumi and Taka too. And I really do feel bad for them. And also, they were hot. Let's be honest. I'll be completely honest. They were hot. Both of them. Um, And yes, the sex scenes were very, very hot as well. I won't argue that. And yes, as an asexual, I can say that. I'm just gonna once again state that asexuality does not mean that I can't find sex hot. It just means that I personally do not wish to engage in it myself. At least for me, it's different depending on asexuals. Just like any part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum, it's all a spectrum. There are different kinds of asexuals, just as like there are different kinds of any kind of LGBTQ plus person, or really any kind of person in general. So yeah, I fully acknowledge when characters or sex scenes or whatnot are very hot and enjoyable to watch. Let's put it that way. um, but yeah, obviously, it's like I honestly just grew to care for these characters like Alucard did. So I just like I was really saddened by how that turned out. And all the new characters in this were great. Sala and the monks were fantastically creepy. The judge was really concerning throughout most of it, and by the end, he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, there's a reason for that." Um, I loved Saint Germain. He was great. It's just like, and I do still think it's funny that he was the one I was most worried about in the end, and he was the only one who was kind of trustworthy in the end. At least most so, because again, I can't entirely blame Sumi and Taka for what they did. But yeah. Anyway, anyway, uh, so I wasn't even planning on talking about like what would replace this series yet because again, I wasn't expecting to finish it today. I was expecting maybe to do half of the episodes, like 3 episodes, not 6. So yeah, I guess we got to announce what's going to be replacing Castlevania. Um, Let me get up my list just to make sure. I believe I know what it is, but I just want to make sure. Yes, yes, yes. That is slot one. Okay, so this next one might seem like almost a random one to some of you. I don't even know how many people know of this series because I almost have never heard anyone talk about it in any way. But we are going to be reacting to the anime series Pandora Hearts. And I'll talk more about it once we actually get to the first reaction for that. But I'll say right now, I've seen a few episodes early in, so I'm not like 100% blind to the beginning of the series. But at the same time, it's been like almost a decade since I've seen those. As in, when I saw those episodes, I was still in high school. I graduated high school in 2011, so keep that in mind. I don't know exactly when it was. I think it probably was 2010 because I think the series came out in 2008 or 2009. So it was probably 2010, maybe 2011 itself before I actually graduated. But I know I was still in high school at the time. In fact, it would have to be 2010 or 2011 because I was in Georgia at the time. So yeah, it was one of those 2 years while I was in Georgia. Um, I started to watch it. I never really finished. I never even got that far. So I don't know too much about it, about where it goes, and I don't even remember much about it, to be honest. I remember like tiny little bits and pieces here and there. So it's gonna still be mostly blind. But I did just want to mention that here. And again, I'll talk more about it when we get to the actual reaction itself, once we start that. Um, but yeah, so that will be next on the list. I know, again, it kind of seems like it's coming out of nowhere, but it's something I've wanted to check out again, and I thought, why not do a reaction to it? Um, we'll see how it goes. So in the meantime, once again, tell me your thoughts on Castlevania Season 3 and the episodes, the 6 ones we specifically reacted to today, down in the comments below. And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.